Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, the Hormone Whisperer. Excited for our Saturday morning quick tip this morning. Thank you guys for every one of you guys that watched last Saturday's quick tip as I was over in Traverse City, Michigan with Brandon, and we had a great time there that way. But this morning, it is me and Lizzie in studio. Good morning, Lizzie. Hope you're doing awesome. Thanks for being here with me. Brandon and Dr. Mitch are over in Wisconsin Rapids this morning, putting on an inflammation talk over there. So excited for our team that gets to travel all over the country and spread a great message. Dr. Jason Nobles, our amazing doc here at Green Bay, was down in the Mississippi area doing a huge weight loss seminar down there. So once again, it's kind of nice to see our message spreading across all over the country with what we're sharing, besides just even our hormone message. So watch all the stuff that we are putting out there. Once again, these quick tips, now all the stuff is brought mainly from what you guys are asking for. So our quick tip this morning actually came from two different questions. As you can see, I'm gonna kind of go over some natural hand sanitizer. Now it came from a question that I'm going to read from a person that sent in your questions, which I love. Now remember, please send your questions to askdrpatrick@twwclinics.com, okay? We will eventually get to it. If it's an extremely important clinical question, you know, it might be a little answered faster. If it's a question like this, I think I got this question about a month ago, so I wanted to actually go over it because it related great to the quick tip today. So let me read it to you and let me see what we can do here. And so here we go. Hi, Dr. Flynn. I am a new mom, and I find myself constantly washing my hands before touching my baby. It's because my pediatrician said before changing her diaper, I must have clean hands or I can give her an infection. So I wash my hands over 20 times per day. But now my hands are cracked, dry, hurt, and red, but I am willing to do anything for my child, okay? Which is great. You're saying it's, she took some advice from the pediatrician. Now, I think the pediatrician maybe went a little bit overboard that way, but let's start here. If you go back even to medical history, it's kind of interesting. When they used to do surgery, they didn't wash their hands or even sanitize themselves before. So what happened is they found out one of the easiest ways to reduce the reduction of people dying during surgery, they started washing their hands. It's not a joke. You know, if you actually see what your hands come in contact with every day, it'd kind of freak you out if you actually could see everything on your hands that way, because you touch so many things. You know, you touch so many things. And really what it comes down to is you come in contact with a constant bombardment of bacteria and viruses. And they hang out on your hands in every part of your body, to tell you the truth, okay? That's why the immune system is so important. But sometimes, especially, the immune system can't get outside the skin as easy as it can get inside our bloodstream that way. So it's good to actually do things to protect it. So that's why I came up with my version that I love intensely is actually the ingredients that actually do a wonderful job for our hand sanitizer. Now, don't get me wrong. There's wonderful products today. Let me step back to 1999. When I first started practice, if I were trying to give a person an alternative, milk product that way, we're lucky if the grocery stores held rice milk. Now, if you go to a normal grocery store, the milk alternatives are plentiful, okay? So as I'm giving you my homemade recipe, the things that I like that way, just understand, you could probably Google search some good ingredients for some natural hand sanitizer, because you may not have the time to make it yourself. But if you do want to make it yourself, I'm going to give you some top ingredients and why I like them and what they do and the microbial factors that really help out that you can do. And you'll find out this. Here's one thing. And so then you say, Doc, well, if they're so plentiful that you can buy them from Amazon, things like that, why do you give some homemade stuff? Guys, I will tell you this intensely, okay? And when you're trying to do stuff on a budget, when you're trying to do stuff and trying to start somewhere, I want to give you the most cost-effective things. And you're going to find out if you just buy some of the ingredients and make it yourself. Man, I'm not joking. It's sometimes 10 to 1 difference. Something that costs you $10 at store really costs you $1 if you make it yourself. So that's why we'll constantly put out things that you can do. So on your Start Somewhere campaign, you can start somewhere cheaper than just replacing it with more of a natural product that might be a little bit more expensive. But either way, you don't have to make your own. Because I had a great question probably about a couple months ago, and the woman's like, man, Doc, I find myself making everything, and it's so much cheaper, but boy, it takes a lot of time. That's the trade-off, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of people have the time to do it that way so they can do it. You know, some people don't have as much time, maybe have a lot of kids, work full-time, things like that, and they just got to do something quick, so it's easier to buy something. So that's why I will continue to give you some homemade things, not that you can't buy it, because there are great companies out there. You can basically sometimes find some of the ingredients that I put together in other products that way, very similar, okay? I'm just gonna give you my favorite just because of my own research and what I like seeing and what I've seen to work clinically. See, the difference is when I give you things clinically, it actually has a little bit more of a potent effect because I'm dealing with sick people all day long, so are all my doctors. So therefore, we see the results much more than, you know, a person just using it by themselves that way, because we're using it on more of a clinical setting. So what are some of my favorite ingredients when it comes to making our own hand sanitizer? Now, coming back to this mother, great question, okay? Thanks for sending it in, I appreciate it that way. Once again, do I believe that you should, you know, wash your hands before changing your baby's diaper? Yeah, I think it is. I think that was actually not bad advice. I think, for example, he might have scared you by telling you that way because you could just basically wash your hands with basic soap, obviously keep it non-toxic, and you can do it that way. But remember, there are things that keep your hands very clean and very sanitized, and actually they make also great cleaning products too, so it's kind of, you know, you can use this kind of hand sanitizer also as maybe a cleaning agent also. So what's my favorite recipe when it comes down to it? This is my favorite formula, okay? Let me explain each one of the ingredients. Number one, I like to use essential oils mixed in there. Lavender and tea tree oil actually have very potent antimicrobial effects. Now let me show you what really makes something antimicrobial. Well, if you ever think about it this way, most microbes, for example, don't do well with oxygen. It's called oxidation. Actually, if you think of it this way, we actually don't really do well with oxidative processes. That's why if you take a bite of an apple and set it down, it starts to break down. It's just that bacteria and viruses are more susceptible to oxidation, and that's why certain essential oils actually bring those donors to it and actually break it down a little bit. That's why they're antimicrobial. See, it doesn't really kill it. Just remember one thing. Whenever he says it's antimicrobial or antifungal, there's no product from the outside that can kill something, okay? What happens is it's more your immune system that kills it. It's just that when you take these essential oils, when you take these certain ingredients, what it does, it actually makes them more susceptible. Let me give you an example, a human example. This has been studied pretty extensively. If a person drinks a soda, okay, with all the ingredients and all the high dose of sugar that way, the immune system is so bombarded that it's trying to deal with the effects of the massive sugar intake that way. So now that leaves you susceptible to bacteria and viruses coming from the outside. So remember that. So what you did, you compromised your immune system because you caused it to do what? Go in a different direction. So now all of a sudden the bacteria and virus come in. Once again, you're more susceptible. So there's certain ingredients that do what? That can affect actually the own bacteria or viruses protecting mechanism, which now leaves it more susceptible for our immune system to make it, you know, destroy it. Because you gotta remember, think about this. Bacteria and viruses will actually, you know, try to attack our immune system. That's why we can die from an infection. It can attack it, break it down, and then multiply and take over all the tissues. So that's why bacteria and viruses have to be taken very seriously that way. It's once again, if you look back in history, that's why you notice, you know, once again, all they did was start washing your hands, and guess what? The amount of deaths during surgery had dropped dramatically. It's extremely well documented that way. Now I think they've gone, you know, to the extreme, making such a crazy sterile environment that they thought they were going to kill off all bacteria and viruses. That's not true. You know, there's no product on the planet that can wipe out all natural bacteria and viruses. It's kind of funny because they tried it and they created what? They create all superbugs. What's a superbug? A superbug, for example, comes in contact with something that could kill it, and because it didn't kill it, it kind of makes it stronger, and it kind of becomes resistant to that same treatment again. It's why a person that continually takes an antibiotic, the bacteria actually have learned to adapt so quickly that they can even eat the antibiotic and make it a food now, which is kind of scary if you think about it, but it's kind of cool if you look at the nature of what happens that way. So, oh my goodness, a bunch of people on here this morning, Lizzie. Good morning to all you people that have jumped on here. Let me say hi to a couple of you guys that way. Here we go. Oh, good morning, everybody. There's Karen. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Brian. Good morning, Annie. Good morning, James. Good morning, Pat. Good morning, Aaron. Good morning to all you beautiful people this morning watching, jumping on. Okay, so I like lavender. I love tea tree oil, but be careful with tea tree oil, okay? Now, I know a lot of people for all you essential oil people, when I always say be careful of certain oils, here come the emails, okay? So tea tree oil is a very potent oil. I'm a big fan of it. I actually love it. It's probably one of my top 3 oils, okay? But what I mean by be careful with tea tree oil sometimes, if it has direct contact with the skin, it can irritate that way, okay? I've had patients literally go have essential oils, put them on their skin, and react with redness that way. Well, I'm going to say, listen, that means they're a little bit inflammatory, and so when they put something on their skin, it could have been anything. It could have made it inflammatory that way. But tea tree oil is a very strong, pungent oil that way. So make sure it's diluted in something that way. And sometimes children can't handle it as well as adults can. So you can now, that's why if you notice I put lavender first. Lavender has amazing antibacterial process that way. That's why it's even good to drink lavender. You can put, I actually like, I don't know, Lizzie, if I ever told you, I like lavender lemonade. You say with some basil leaves on top that way. Man, you want to talk about good, refreshing drink. Get some lemonade, make some good organic lemonade, put some lavender in there, and also put some basil leaves on top and let that soak. Oh my goodness, talk about a wonderful, refreshing drink for the summer that way. Absolutely incredible that way. So when you look at those things, it's actually fantastic for some microbial aspects. So therefore, once again, I, as an adult, for example, would like to put tea tree and lavender in there because it's a very potent effect when it does come to bacteria and viruses that way. Now, once again, then we actually throw in some silver gel. And as you can see, you can buy silver gel. Now, there's other forms of silver, and yes, I will do a little bit more detail in silver just on a quick tip itself that way. But there's silver gel. There's also, liquid silver that you can actually add to the formula that way. Then aloe vera gel. Once again, you can buy big gel. You can also buy juice, which I think is one of the best products on the planet to use for your GI. But you can use a gel in there. Now, once again, don't drink the gel. The gel is like actually swallowing snot. You know what I'm saying? That's why there's aloe vera juice that way, whole leaf. But you can also get the gel that way. And you can combine this, but also have some form of alcohol, okay? It allows it to absorb and actually dehydrate so it isn't wet all the time. Actually, it's not a joke. You can actually take some organic vodka and mix all these ingredients together, put it in there, and the alcohol content will eventually evaporate. So once again, you don't have to worry about putting on a child that way and stuff. But the idea is you can put some form of, good alcohol. You can put some form of rubbing alcohol that's a decent alcohol. Don't buy some toxic stuff that way. And actually, this whole formula does a great job of sanitizing that way. It's a simple formula. Now, you can exchange some of the oils that you do like in there. I know you can actually put some witch hazel, for example, if you don't like alcohol, put in there. So there's different ingredients that you can exchange out for it that way. But I think if you just keep the standard of some oil, silver, and aloe alone, you could actually just take lavender, silver, and aloe gel alone, and right there is such a great hand sanitizer that way. It might be, like I said, it might stay wet on your hands a little longer if you don't have some alcohol form to create a little evaporation that way. But otherwise, once again, those 3 ingredients alone would actually be wonderful. Now you can mix and match them a little bit that way. And you can put them in a nice little pump, and actually it works really well. But, pick out some good essential oils that are there, pick out aloe, fantastic, okay? Now, once again, simple, easy, quick, cheap, really cheap. I mean, do you understand that you could actually use basically a whole year's worth of stuff just from there? Now, the great thing, the reason why I also like aloe, if you look at the woman's response, obviously I could tell she was washing her hands with probably some dish soap that way. And look, she did. She created her hand to be dry, cracked, hurt, and swollen that way. Well, once again, you can't continually put different bacterial things on there without having some irritation if they're synthetic that way. And that's why people actually get some massive red and irritation. It's why, if you ever notice, that gloves, dishwashing gloves came about, because as all the dish soaps came out and had some very potent very potent toxic things in there, actually people's hands started to get really bad. That's why you see all the gloves being used for washing dishes and everything. That's why you see in a lot of commercial, places as far as going to eat and stuff like that. Most of those people have to, if they're a dishwasher, have to wear, some glove because all the toxic ingredients that they have come in contact with on a regular basis that way. So once again, what I'd finally do is add the right ingredients that way, put something together there, young lady, and then once again, by putting the aloe on there, it's very soothing and regenerative to the skin. Now, I want to go a little bit more in detail in one of the products, okay? Silver. There's a lot of information out there about silver, so I'm a huge fan of silver. Now, let me explain why. If you think about it this way, I was just recently in Florida. I was recently in Michigan. I recently could travel all over. I was recently in Hawaii, okay? Now, if you think about it this way, there's a lot of bacteria and viruses that exist in different areas that don't exist in Wisconsin. So I'm consistently coming in contact with bacteria and viruses. That is not my normal environment, okay? Think about this. I jump on planes all the time. Planes are nothing more just a bunch of, a conglomeration of petri dishes put together. Not a joke. You have so much. When you get on a plane, man, I remember there was one time sitting right next to a guy that all he did for the whole 3-hour flight was sneeze and cough and that way. And I wasn't really concerned. Do you see what I'm saying? I wasn't really concerned that much. Now, why am I not really that concerned? It's because I want to talk about actually, it comes from this question here. Remember I told you this, it's quick tip came from 2 questions. Doc, what is your favorite product for bacteria and viruses? Well, plain and simple, one thing, silver. Let me say it again, plain and simple, one thing, silver. See, think about this. You see me do a quick tip and things every week. Do you ever see me much with a cold? No, if anything, I will get a very little sniffle for a short time because my body deals with a lot of bacteria and viruses traveling all over, but it doesn't turn out into much. I believe, for example, the reason why it is because I give my body that protection. I take silver on a regular basis. So when the people say, what's my favorite product for bacteria and viruses? And that's a big key right there. If there's a lot of antimicrobial and antifungal things, watch when you read things, okay? For example, let's take any decent herb. Let's take like wormwood, which actually is very good for actually yeast, okay? Doesn't really have much effect on viral effects that way. There's very little things. Now, let me say this again. There's very little products that have effect on viruses. That's why if you ever notice, if someone got a virus and when you went to the medical doctor that knew nothing about the whole natural approach that way, they'd say, well, it's a viral, stay hydrated, and it'll eventually move itself out. Well, that's true sometimes, do you see what I'm saying? But the idea is this, is there's very little products medically that they do with viruses that way. See, so when you look at the question being what's my favorite product for bacteria and viruses, because viruses are very strong, they really can. I've said this, and this is my own personal thing, so let me give you my opinion, okay? Once again, I always tell people when I talk between fact and opinion, I'm gonna give you an opinion. I personally believe that most people die of a virus someday. I've looked at people say, no, heart disease and cancer. Well, really, there's usually a secondary infection that comes in and really kills them that way. Most people that die of a heart attack have the heart attack that they actually, had the boom and they don't make it to the hospital and they die. Most people die from secondary infections, usually viral that way. If you look actually even nursing homes today, a lot of them actually deal from secondary infections, usually viral, sometimes bacterial, because that does happen, but that's one of the biggest things. So viruses is something I always want to be key on. The one thing about silver, now once again, silver does a great job of giving an oxygen molecule to its envelope. Now what's the envelope? Envelope, I was thinking this way. Think of a virus and its envelope is like a turtle shell. It's pretty hard to break through that turtle shell. That's why if you ever notice, actually what does a turtle do when it sees danger? It pulls itself, legs and head into the tail, everything, into that shell. Well, that shell is basically the envelope for a virus. All right. So the nice thing is silver has actually been well shown to actually disrupt it. Now, it doesn't kill it. Let me say it again. There's no natural product that kills bacteria and viruses. Let me say it again, because I love when people say, take this, it kills this. No, it doesn't, okay? What it does, it weakens some microbe, it weakens some virus, and now your immune system has more chance of battling it and win it when it's compromised. Okay, so I actually love when people say, take this product, it kills stuff. No, it doesn't. The only thing that can ever kill anything is your own immune system, period. Okay, just understand that. It's just that what happens is when these bacteria and viruses are susceptible, they're more apt for damage, they're more apt for breakdown that way, and so these products can actually do that way. But there's no, once again, the silver doesn't kill the virus, the silver doesn't kill the bacteria, it allows it to be more susceptible to be killed because it's weakened. Just like we're more susceptible to die of an infection if our immune system is weak. It's the same process that way. If you think about it in history, I almost called you Nancy this morning. Lizzie, I'm gonna teach you some things that people didn't understand in history. Lizzie, do you know where the term, people say, well, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. See, people think that's about wealth. Well, it was, but here's what happens. See, go back hundreds of years ago, when a baby was born, they actually had them suck on a silver spoon. but the only people that could afford silver were richer people of the times. But why did they suck on the silver? They found out, even back then, that by sucking on the silver spoon, the rate of infant deaths dropped dramatically. Let me say it again. So when people say, well, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, what they're really referring to that they weren't rich. Where that whole term came from was ancient times when people that did have money and could afford silver that way, when a baby was born, the silver was put in their mouth they sat and sucked on it, and they found that the infant mortality rate dropped. So that's how that whole term came about. A lot of people knew that. So now you know, if people say, well, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, I'm like, actually, yes, you were, because you probably had silverware. Do you understand? Back then, it's kind of, you want to know some pretty cool history, look at the Roman Empire. You know, you hear of things of how the Roman Empire fell. One of the major reasons is their silverware, or their cookware and their plates, actually it's quite documented quite well, is actually they ate off of lead. Do you understand? And they were poisoning themselves. So they were dying at a much higher rate that way. Check it out. It's pretty cool for history. I love history, so it's kind of, well, that's one of the things I love to read that way, especially when it does the health that way. So if you ever hear the term, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, actually, back then, the people that can afford silver did put it in their baby's mouth, and guess what happened? They survived more. So that's where that kind of whole saying came from. Another one that actually happened in the last 100 years is actually the milk industry. Not a joke. Before refrigeration became very big, they used to take silver coins and drop them in the bottom of their milk jugs. That's how they preserved it, okay? That's why, for example, there was always a coin at the bottom of the milk jug, okay? That's where some of that history came from. What they were doing is they found out that when they dropped the silver in the milk jug that way, what'd it do? It kept it more sterile. It kept it weakened that way. So now if a person did grow some pathological processes on there, and see, this was all before they started to pasteurize everything. But some of these things have long, ancient history, you know, of things that go on that way. So it's kind of cool when you look at the history of where silver started that way. And always remember this. Silver, to me, if you look at one of the major things, that's why if you look at medications, there's not that many antivirals out there. Silver, to me, is probably one of the biggest things that can affect viruses there. That's why I don't have a really problem traveling all over the country that way. I even travel into other areas because I'm always, you know, I will take silver on a regular basis. And then on top of it, what I'll do is I'll actually take a little bit extra when I'm traveling. So it does give me a little bit more protection from things that I've never came in contact with. Because I guarantee, I have to travel a bunch around this fall. I'm going to go to different areas, and therefore I'm going to come in contact not only with viruses and bacteria, but people's mutated viruses and stuff like that. So it gives me that little wall of protection that way. So I'm kind of a big fan of silver on what it does. And once again, I like spray. It's one of the easiest ones. Actually, it's kind of cool. You'll find out people that have, you know, some sinus issues that way and end up with regular infections, they can actually squirt it right up into their nose. It's actually great for topically too. That's why I do like it in a hand sanitizer, because it does a wonderful job of keeping the microbes under control so the wound can actually heal a little bit. You can see, for example, that people get pink eye. Okay, now one thing I do like for pink eye the best is actually breast milk. It's not a joke. If you look at breast milk going into the eye, it's actually one of the best things you can use, but not everybody is gonna ask their friend that's actually nursing for some breast milk that way, unless you understand this and you have no problem with it that way, but also they've actually done silver drops in the eyes, okay? Now, if you look at it this way, when a baby's born, they take a synthetic, which I'm not a really big fan of because it's actually more of an antibiotic that way. They take a silver nitrate drops in the eyes the minute a baby's born, okay? Now, why do they do that? See, people say, Doc, why do they actually put those drops in the eyes? Because they create a synthetic chemical, but here's what they're really doing. They're trying to protect the baby's eyes from some microbe, viral or actually even bacterial. Now, say, well, why do they do it in every child's eyes? Because here's what happens. Why is it put in the eyes? They treat every woman like they have some venereal disease. So instead of checking a woman to see if she has some venereal disease, they just create a standard across the board and put those drops in the eyes, okay? So I understand what they're doing. It's just that I always ask people, I'm like, unless you have an active venereal disease, you know, saying that's why they actually put it in the regular basis. So once again, it's their standard of delivery that way. So, oh my goodness, Nancy. Lizzie, we covered a lot today. So once again, what's Dr. Flynn's favorite product for bacteria and viruses? Silver. He was saying, I like it, you know. And what's kind of funny, the FDA did a report one time, and I think it was 1999, don't quote me exactly on that, because I read it a long time ago, and it talked about that there's no scientific evidence. You know, it's really funny. I kind of giggle at that. There's well-documented things with scientific evidence. It's just that, once again, it can actually go against what some of the major things that are out there when it comes to actually, you know, antibiotics and things like that they don't want to counteract with that way. And you got to remember, they put such crazy, you know, things that are approved by the FDA that I kind of giggle when they talk about, you know, silver not being an approved method that way. Man, there's a lot of great things outside the United States that they do and study that, once again, you don't see in your basic literature today. But silver has well documented. I even love it when they put it in Petri dishes and actually watch what the bacteria do. It's kind of cool. You can actually see some great videos out there. That's one thing I love about the internet. The internet, for example, allows you to actually search deeper than listening to, you know, medically funded, you know, organizations like the CDC and FDA and stuff like that. So once again, do your great research on it. It's a wonderful products out there. Once again, hand sanitizer. You can buy a bunch of good products. You can actually make it yourself. Also, remember, continue to send your questions. Once again, we love your questions. These 2 questions came from you guys, so it allowed me to actually see what you guys want to hear and my perspective on it that way. Once again, like I said, all these questions really do a wonderful job of allowing us to get out information. And once again, as you know, the Wellness Way always comes from a very different perspective, because we don't sit there and just try to sell products to people. There has to be some major clinical reason why they should be used, or what could be used on a regular basis for your family that's going to be beneficial and also cost effective. That's a big thing. There was a person that a patient of ours went to a very well-known speaker's seminar. And it's kind of funny because the whole seminar was based on, you know, just the different superfoods and things like that. And he said, man, after I was done with the seminar, I basically thought I had to buy like 300 products a day, or otherwise I was going to be unhealthy and I wasn't going to live. I'm like, yeah, that's what happens when you know, everybody goes to product-based seminars, because they're going to tell you, for example, what's the best thing that you need the rest of your life that way. You know, be careful on that stuff. You know, look at your body, get yourself tested, see what your body needs, and see what you can do that's simple, cost-effective. So one of the things I tell people, when you look at her doing things for microbial, how can you start somewhere? And start with some silver. Silver does a great job. And one last thing about this is everybody always quotes the blue man, the guy who actually turned blue from silver, okay? Once again, if that was the case, silver has been used for thousands of years, okay? And there'd be a lot more blue men running around if it was that toxic for you. So I kind of giggle. Anybody can use anything at an excessive level that way. And on top of it, I always say is, well, the guy who actually turned blue, if you look at his history that way, was trying to recover from some medical condition that didn't help him medical-wise. And he did live a lot longer, and his skin turned blue. So I think there had to be some correlation between his lymphatics and not draining out and some of it building up in his tissues that way. But he did survive and lived longer than they actually predicted him to live. So there's a little bit better story than what they put out there as far as people turning blue. Yes, Nancy. Yes, Lizzie. What you got? Question?
Yeah. Roxanne Smith.
Roxanne.
Can you take silver if you're sensitive to metals?
Yes. Okay. Here's what happens. Now, I'm a person that does this, okay? If you look at even my kids' dental, okay, they, you know, when Faith first got her braces, the first thing we did was actually test her for sensitivities that way. Now, what's a hypersensitivity? Hypersensitivity is if your body comes in contact with something, there's going to be some inflammatory things. You know, I love testing, and if you notice, there are some people that actually can react to it that way. The majority of people don't, but I have had patients actually that were allergic to silver, so silver would not be a good thing for them. Okay, once again, it's just a simple lab test that way. When, like I said, if I can give the perfect example, when I talked to my daughter's orthodontist, when they wanted to put the metals on, I'm like, give me a list of everything that was on there. And then we drew her blood and had it tested at a really great lab. And then she wasn't sensitive. She didn't have any hypersensitivities to any of those metals. So you can actually, there's some metals that your body cannot use whatsoever. And you gotta remember, if you think about it this way, does your body really use silver? It doesn't really use silver, okay? Your body doesn't, your immune system doesn't take it and do stuff that way. It's just that what they'll find out, it's not toxic to it unless you're allergic to it. So it's not really toxic, but it does affect the microbes within both bacteria and viruses. And once again, causes a little breakdown, but your body can usually eliminate it quite well. Like the guy who turned blue, I believe his lymphatic system had to have had a problem because he didn't clear it out. And so yes, so you can be sensitive to metals, be very careful. Silver, once again, and most people is non-reactive that way. I can only tell you, in 19 years of testing people, I've probably maybe seen 2 people that actually had silver on their tests. So I told them, don't use it unless the silver reaction goes away. Any other questions there, Lizzie?
Maureen
Yes.
here says, did I miss what's in store-bought hand sanitizer that's bad for you? I don't think we talked about that.
Put it this way. There's a lot of bad ingredients. I always hate these names because it's sometimes hard to pronounce. The triclosanol, whatever it's called. I'll put the word on there down below. It's a major antibacterial ingredient that actually exists within there that's toxic. Man, I always tell people, be very careful of putting synthetic chemicals anywhere on your body because your body doesn't really know how to break them down. And if you think about this, what's the job of your liver? To take some substance, break it down, and eliminate it in the water. Well, that puts a lot of stress on your liver, okay? So once again, and that's why if you notice most of your silver companies today, your really good ones, they start to become a nanoparticle, that they're so small that allows them to circulate and eliminate quite well that way. So I just don't like certain toxic ingredients within hand sanitizers that way. What I'll do, we'll post the ingredient. I'm horrible at saying some of the names. It's like the term when you turn blue. It's like argilla and stuff like that. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? It's a medical term that way. I don't know why I just don't say he turns blue. Okay, so any other questions are for me?
No, that's it.
All right, so thank you so much for joining my quick tip, which turned out to be about 30 minutes. So all our quick tips end up going long. But thank you for always tuning in. Do me a favor, always like and share if you like the information that we put out there. I appreciate you guys always watching. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn here at the Wellness Way here in Green Bay. But check out all of our Wellness Ways as we get more and more and more across the country because of our idea of how we view healthcare and what we're doing. It's kind of nice. We will continue just like a virus, spread all over the country, a good virus though, and bringing information to places all over the world. So thank you so much on this beautiful Saturday morning for watching. We will talk to you guys soon.